My name is Robert Mitchell and I'm 62 years old. I am a retired engineer. My family includes my wife, Sarah, and our 12-year-old daughter, Emily. 2 years ago, we moved into a community called Lakeside Estates, thinking it would be the perfect place for our family. It's a beautiful neighborhood with manicured lawns, a clubhouse, and everything we thought we needed for a peaceful life. Emily wasn't always blind. When she was younger, she had perfect vision just like other kids. But when she turned 12, doctors diagnosed her with a disease called Stargardt's disease. This condition slowly took away her central vision, leaving her mostly blind. It was hard for all of us to accept at first. But Emily never let her blindness stop her from doing anything. She worked hard and never gave up. Even though she couldn't see clearly, she found ways to keep up with her friends and family. Despite her blindness, Emily has shown amazing strength. She works hard in school and has straight A grades. She uses a special cane and assistive technology to help her move around and learn. Emily's service dog Max helps her a lot too. Max is like her eyes, guiding her safely around the neighborhood. Emily doesn't let anything hold her back, and her spirit inspires everyone who meets her. After moving to Lakeside Estates, things started out well for our family, but we soon noticed a problem. Our new home, which we thought would be perfect, had some areas that were difficult for Emily to navigate. The walkways connecting our house to the clubhouse, pool, and mailboxes were particularly hard for her to use. Without clear markers, Emily struggled to find her way, and it became a safety concern. To help Emily, I decided to install tactile markers along the walkways. These markers cost less than $200 and were designed to help Emily use her cane to feel the boundaries of the path. They were small and discreet, so they didn't affect the appearance of the walkways. My hope was that this simple modification would help Emily navigate her new environment safely and independently. However, just a few days later, we received a notice from the HOA, led by President Karen Whitfield. The notice said that the tactile markers had to be removed immediately. They claimed the modification was unauthorized and violated the community's rules. I was shocked. I explained that the markers were necessary for Emily's safety and sent the HOA the doctor's recommendation, as well as information about the legal rights of disabled people to have reasonable accommodations. But Karen's response was cold and dismissive. In her reply, she suggested that Emily should be accompanied by us, her parents, whenever she wanted to use the common areas. She implied that a 12-year-old should not be allowed to walk around the community on her own. Karen said that the HOA prioritized aesthetics and that accommodations for disabilities were not a concern. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was clear to me that Karen didn't care about Emily's needs or rights. The situation only got worse when we received a second notice from the HOA, this time with fines. The letter threatened more fines if the modifications weren't removed. Emily started feeling overwhelmed by the constant pressure. She wondered if she should just remove the markers to avoid causing trouble for our family. It was heartbreaking to see her struggle with this decision, but I knew I had to stand up for her rights. After the HOA refused to accommodate Emily's needs, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let them continue to treat her like this. So, I decided to start documenting everything. I kept a record of all our interactions with the HOA, including emails and letters. But I knew it wasn't enough to just have written proof. I needed more concrete evidence. That's when I decided to use a legal voice recorder during HOA meetings. I wanted to capture every word, especially any discriminatory comments that might be made about Emily. At the next HOA meeting, I discreetly turned on the recorder. During the meeting, Karen made some very insulting comments about Emily. She referred to her as the blind kid causing trouble, and she mocked her need for modifications. She even laughed about how she thought the community was getting too many special requests. Listening to this hurt me deeply, but I knew I had the proof I needed. This showed just how little Karen cared about Emily's rights. Things took a turn for the worse when Emily tried to walk to the mailboxes by herself. There were still no tactile markers along the steps, which we had specifically requested. As Emily approached the stairs, she lost her balance and fell. She scraped her knee in her hands trying to catch herself, and her cane broke from the fall. I rushed outside to help her, feeling helpless. She was upset, but she tried to stay strong. It was clear that without the markers, she couldn't safely navigate the area. As I helped Emily up, Karen appeared. She had been doing her usual inspection of the neighborhood. Instead of showing concern for Emily's injury, Karen made a cold remark. She said, "If you can't navigate safely, maybe you should live somewhere more appropriate for your situation." Her words hit me like a punch in the stomach. How could someone be so heartless? That moment was the turning point. I realized I couldn't let this go any longer. I knew I had to take legal action to protect Emily and stand up for what was right. After the fall incident and Karen's cruel remarks, I knew I couldn't handle this on my own anymore. I decided to reach out to Michael Chung, a disability rights attorney, for help. Michael had experience in cases like ours, where a community or organization failed to provide proper accommodations for someone with a disability. After looking over all the evidence, Michael confirmed what I feared. The HOA was violating federal laws, including the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. These laws require communities to make reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities, and the HOA had failed to do so. Michael explained that we had a strong case, and we decided to file a formal complaint against the HOA. We were prepared to take legal action and fight for Emily's right to access her own neighborhood safely and independently. To build our case, Michael helped me gather all the evidence we had. We had email exchanges with the HOA, including Karen's dismissive replies, which clearly showed her disregard for Emily's needs. We also had the recording of Karen's insensitive remarks, which proved she had mocked Emily and referred to her as the blind kid causing trouble. We included the violation notices, fines, and photos showing how minimal the tactile markers were and how they didn't interfere with the appearance of the community. We also pointed out how the HOA had ignored our requests for reasonable accommodations, and how they had intentionally targeted our family with threats and fines. The evidence showed a pattern of harassment and discrimination against Emily, based on her disability. Michael assured us that we were on the right path and that the evidence would speak for itself in court. We knew this would be a long and difficult battle, but we were ready. It was time to stand up for Emily and fight for her right to live safely and independently in her own community. The day of the court hearing was full of tension. The courtroom was crowded with people. Neighbors, reporters, and even members of a local disability rights group. Emily and I were ready to stand up for what was right. The judge, who had a reputation for being fair, called the court to order. We could feel the weight of the moment. When it was Emily's turn to testify, she did so with incredible strength. Despite everything that had happened, she spoke clearly and confidently. She described how the lack of accommodations in the community made it hard for her to navigate safely. She explained how simple modifications like the tactile markers would help her move around independently. Emily also shared how Karen's cruel comments made her feel unwelcome in her own home. Her words were powerful, and you could see the courtroom reacting to her bravery. But Karen, sitting across the room, didn't show any sign of remorse. Instead, she continued to belittle Emily in the courtroom. She smirked when Emily spoke and whispered to her lawyer. The judge noticed and warned Karen to stay respectful. The mood in the room shifted as Karen's attitude became more obvious. Next, the attorney presented the evidence we had collected. The most shocking part was the recording of Karen mocking Emily's needs and dismissing federal disability laws. The judge listened carefully as Karen's voice filled the courtroom, and the reaction from everyone was immediate. It was clear that Karen had shown no respect for Emily's rights. As the trial continued, support for Emily grew. Several neighbors testified against Karen. They spoke about how they had seen Karen treat Emily poorly, and how they disagreed with the HOA's actions. Even some of the board members testified that they had concerns about Karen's handling of the situation. The biggest moment came when the property manager, Jessica, admitted that Karen had instructed her to focus on finding violations at our house, even when they weren't there. The case was turning in our favor. More and more people were speaking out against Karen and the way she had treated our family. It was clear that Emily's fight for justice was resonating with others. The tide was turning, and it was becoming evident that Karen's actions would not be allowed to stand. The court ruling was a huge victory for our family. The judge found in our favor, ruling that the HOA had discriminated against Emily and violated federal law. The judge ordered the HOA to pay $175,000 in fines for their actions, and Karen's behavior was considered retaliatory and unfair. Not only did the judge rule against the HOA, but Karen also faced consequences for her actions. Her real estate license was suspended due to her violations of fair housing laws. It was a huge win for us and a sign that justice had been served. The victory didn't just affect our family, it changed the entire community. After the trial, the HOA had to bring in new leadership. The board members who had supported Karen were replaced, and Lakeside Estates began making real changes. They implemented accessibility modifications throughout the community, making sure the walkways had tactile markers, improved lighting, and clear signage. No one would ever be treated like Emily had been again. The changes brought the neighborhood closer together and helped everyone see the importance of inclusive Emily's journey didn't stop there. She went from being a shy teenager who had faced so many challenges to becoming a strong advocate for disability rights. She started speaking out at local schools, educating others about the importance of accessibility and inclusion. Emily also began mentoring other visually impaired students, sharing her story and helping them find ways to navigate the world with confidence. Her bravery and determination inspired many people, and her efforts led to changes in laws beyond our community. Several states passed new disability accommodation laws, using our case as a model for how communities should support people with disabilities. As for Emily, she wasn't done making a difference. She decided to study law in college, focusing on civil rights. She wanted to help others who were in situations like hers and make sure no one ever had to face discrimination again. Robert watched his daughter grow into a powerful advocate for justice and felt proud of the role they played in changing the laws of their state. Their fight wasn't just for themselves, it was for everyone who needed a voice, and Emily was now using hers to make the world a better place for others.